Fox News' Jesse Waters has found himself in hot water after making these comments on the network's primetime show, The Five, Monday night. Let's watch.
This is where the president has his most impact. You have a lot of room to maneuver there as commander in chief. We don't know who she is. We don't know what she believes. She's going to get paralyzed in the Situation Room while the generals have their way with her. Right now,
Jesse Waters.
Jesse, I don't like that.
Figuratively,
Take
again,
it back.
have their way with her, control her, not in a sexual way. You're now.
Several of his co-hosts clearly were not the only ones taken aback. Doug Emhoff's ex-wife, Kirsten, fired back, posting there are many things to worry about being but Kamala being manhandled in the Situation Room is not one of them. Congresswoman Barbara Comstock posted, quote, "When even Fox hosts can't abide the intentional misogyny against Kamala Harris by the dumbest and most obnoxious man on Fox, Jesse Waters. The brain worms that have, quote, their way in this boy's head." Writer Amy Siskind called for the host to be axed, quote, "Jesse Waters should be fired for this. Even the two women on the panel were appalled. What say you, Fox News?" Waters tried to explain himself on the following night, saying that his comments were being twisted. Take a look.
There's been some attention to comments I made on the show yesterday about VP Harris. People are misconstruing my comments to mean something inappropriate. I wasn't suggesting anything of a sexual nature. I was expressing my opinion that Vice President Harris's current leadership style could be an issue if elected.
I just think it's plain as day that if Kamala Harris was not a woman, and this was not a situation talking about a woman in a room of men, he wouldn't have used the phrase "have their way with her." He would have said they would have persuaded her, or they would have had their view or their course of action taken without question. Have their way with her is not a phrase that is used in a manner that's not sexual.
He misspoke. He says he misspoke. He meant take advantage of her. Not in a sexual way, as he said, but take advantage of the fact that she is inexperienced or does not have a commanding presence in his view, and that they would be able to implement policies or recommend things without her having a grasp of the situation. Again, that's his view of it. He didn't mean it in a sexual way. He misspoke, and I don't know. This seems, what's the big deal? I'm a little thrown by it. It's misogynist. Okay, you can never criticize Kamala Harris. That's what we're saying. It's misogynist or wrong to suggest that. We don't know what her policies are. She's not faced scrutiny for them. I don't know where she differs for or agrees with Biden, her boss, in terms of foreign policy. I don't know if she wants to leave it to the generals, if she's going to listen to them, if she's not going to listen to them. I have no idea. I happen to be someone who thinks foreign policy should actually be made by our democratically elected leaders, not the cabal of foreign policy experts, generals, military people who survive, who stay in Washington, who are the policymakers, regardless of whether we have Republicans and Democrats, and continue, I would argue, a generally interventionist foreign policy, even when the American people clearly give a mandate to our politicians to do something different. But we still have the blob running things. Is she going to stand up to the blob? I think that's an interesting question. I don't know. I'd like to learn more about it. I think that's what Jesse Waters was getting at. His phrasing was not ideal, as he admits, but the point to me is perfectly valid, and we're delegitimizing that inquiry to start whining, complaining about his phrasing there would be my take.
I just don't get where it's coming from. What does he mean she's inexperienced? She's serving as the vice president today. She is the person on the ticket who has the most experience in regard to American foreign policy and awareness of where the United States military is involved abroad and what the details of those operations were. There is no one besides President Biden who knows more than her on this. So the idea that she is inexperienced or unable to make decisions when she has a record of public service that, I'm sorry, but JD Vance is tiny compared to her record. But no one says he's going to get taken advantage of when he's making decisions in the White House. Why is that? She doesn't have a commanding presence? Have you seen her on the floor of Congress asking questions, tough questions to people there who are there to give testimony and get asked tough questions too. I just have never seen Kamala Harris waver in those situations. And Jesse Waters is aware of Kamala Harris's appearances on the Senate, in her committees, asking tough questions to elected officials, bureaucrats, and anyone of interest to the American government. He knows very well her record of public service as a senator and as attorney general. So this idea that she is someone who would be weak in the Situation Room, weak in a room of military officials, that's her job today. She's experienced in that. And so I just would ask, where is it coming from? Where are these ideas coming from at the baseline to make that criticism or ask that question?
Well, they're coming from the fact that, again, as I said a minute ago, no matter who's in charge, I apply this to both parties. Barack Obama was elected on a mandate to have a less interventionist foreign policy, that the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan had gone devastatingly wrong, and there was no immediate withdrawal from those efforts. In fact, there was escalations despite what people voted for him to do. This constitutional scholar continuing aspects of the conflict that I think were violations of the Constitution. And people started to wonder, well, why is that? Is it because the president doesn't actually get to make a lot of these decisions? They end up getting rolled by what people call the blob, the Washington, D.C. foreign policy military consensus are the people actually making decisions. I think this was true to an extent when Trump was then elected on that same mandate to have a less interventionist foreign policies. And I think in some ways he achieved that, and others he didn't. But who's actually making these decisions? Those are two people, Barack Obama and Donald Trump, with who are rhetorically gifted in different ways, who are strong personalities, who made very clear, who railed against the interventionist foreign policies of other administrations, who came in explicitly to change it. And I would argue both of them, again, I'm both sidesing this. I want to accuse both parties of not doing what they were elected to do. They were not able to make as much of a difference as expected. So then the question is, well, will Kamala Harris be able to succeed where they did not? And I would like to be reassured of that if she would more explain or more elucidate what her views are. And to your point about J.D. Vance, look, if someone said, I think J.D. Vance is going to get taken advantage of, or whatever the phrasing is, by the generals because he's not, I don't think there's evidence that he's tough enough to go toe-to-toe with them, I wouldn't react to that by saying accuse them of anti-male or saying a sexist or whatever remark. I would just say okay, well, what's your evidence for that? Why do you think that? It seems like, I don't know, I don't like that kind of shutting down inquiry for those reasons.
It's not shutting down inquiry because he didn't ask what you said. That's just not what J.D. Waters said. He said Kamala Harris in a room full of military commanders would have their way with her. That's very different from saying, I'm not sure that Kamala Harris will stand up to the bureaucrats in the foreign policy establishment. That's a different inquiry. That's a different question. What people are upset about is not the content of the question being about Kamala Harris standing up to bureaucrats, the blob, the military industrial complex, or the foreign policy establishment, the CIA, nor any other international body. What they're upset about is that he said the commander-in-chief, she would be their boss, that military commanders went in a room with her, not her peers, people who are subject to her command, would have their way with her. That's a ridiculous thing to say about the commander-in-chief. And so Jesse Waters' words were just simply not what you just said. And so I think people are upset because the words he did use are words that have a specific connotation that was inappropriate, that was dismissive of the idea that a woman could be commander-in-chief no matter how experienced she is.
We'll be back with more Rising right after this.